And it's a pleasure to serve under your chairship, and I certainly want to congratulate the honourary member for Stretford and Ernston for bringing forward this extremely important debate. Thank you. The UK is a country shamed by the poverty of its people and especially of its children. And the government's failure to act to curb the corporate profiteering that is driving inflation is just one of many ways in which the government is fanning the flames of the cost of living emergency. 14.5 million people in this country live in poverty, 4.3 million of them children. In the last full calendar year, real terms wages fell by 3.1%, while according to the latest ONS figures, private rents rose by 5% in the year to May. And if we look at the figures from Generation Rent, they will tell us that actually figures for private rent has increased by 22% since March 2021 and have been pushed up further in response to yet higher interest rate and as landlords take advantage of the crisis to improve profits. As a result, private renters in England now pay up to 40% of their median household income on rent. Rent as a share of income is at its highest in over a decade. And while the Scottish Government took action last year to at least temporarily cap rent increases at 0% through the Cost of Living Tenant Protection Scotland Bill, the Westminster Government has allowed rents to be driven by the market and by greed with little thought for the additional huge burden it is placing on the backs of those who are already going under. The government's Renters Reform Bill that was introduced in May, almost a year after the planned reforms were announced, has seen its second reading delayed until at least the autumn, with no date for it yet announced, despite the imminent recess. Meanwhile, private renters, more than 4 million households, a number that has doubled in 2 decades of failure to build council and social housing, continue to face insecure tenancies, arbitrary and backdoor Section 21 no-fault evictions, and often appalling living conditions. And in the middle of a cost of living crisis, they are also paying more than $570 a year more than they need to in energy costs. According to E3G, because of landlords' refusal to upgrade heating systems and insulation. As a result, Fuel Poverty charity National Energy Action has noted that private renters are more likely to be fuel poor than people in any other type of tenure and more likely to live in the leakiest properties, often needing to spend thousands of pounds more than the average household just to keep a healthy temperature at home. We have seen in the case of the odious illegal migration bill just how quickly this government can force legislation through Parliament when it has a mind to do so. Against such a backdrop of a perfect storm of misery for millions living in privately rented accommodation, the government must, yes it must, urgently publish an accelerated timetable for the Renters Reform Bill and combat the affordability crisis in private renting, which is absent from the proposed measures, which will go at least some way toward reducing the injustice and inequality of private rent. Thank you, Dr. Hook.